and it's in the name of Deputy John Brady. Deputy Brady, you have 4 minutes to make your case.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Minister, last Friday evening an email was circulated by the CEO of Wicklow County Council to the Wicklow County Councillors and to the 5 TDs, informing us of a decision that had already been made and signed off on. The decision will mean that the waste intake at Ballynagran Landfill in County Wicklow will be increased to 190,000 tonnes. That is an additional 40,000 tonnes above the maximum tonnage under the planning conditions set out by the EPA waste licence. The EPA has agreed to this, and I'm sure you've signed off on it as well, Minister, and has indeed granted technical amendments to the licence at Ballynagran. This has come about because the landfill at Dryhead in County Kildare has exceeded its annual EPA licence capacity. Clearly, this emergency situation was seen coming. However, there was a failure to put in place any plans to deal with it, and now Wicklow is going to become the dumping ground of the state because of this failure. Can I ask the Minister, were you aware of the emergency situation that was arriving in County Kildare? And if you were, when exactly were you made aware of the pending crisis? And who contacted you, and indeed when were you first contacted? Minister, we know that Ballynagran Landfill is already rated by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, as the worst dump in the state. And, Minister, are you aware of that fact? I'll give you an example. In 2013, Minister, the EPA received over 140 official complaints in relation to Ballynagran Landfill. It was the most complaints of any landfill in the state at that stage. I think in total there was 500. And still, this year, there's a substantial amount of complaints in with the EPA, official complaints lodged with the EPA. And indeed, a community liaison committee was established as a planning condition. Such was the concern and opposition to the dump when it was first planned a number of years ago. Minister, was that committee consulted with during the decision-making process? The answer is no. They weren't. In fact, there was no consultation with the community or with elected representatives whatsoever. This decision has been railroaded through with no consultation whatsoever. Is the Minister aware of the ongoing concerns surrounding the Ballynagran landfill with its current waste intake already without a 40,000 tonne increase? I drove down to the site myself yesterday evening, Minister, and the smell was totally unbearable, and that was only driving by. And at this time of the year, in the winter time, you can just imagine what that's like for locals living there 365 days of the year, particularly at the summer time. Minister, are you aware that a family have been forced out of their own home due to the odours? They were forced out of their home last December and have been unable to go back to their home for nearly a full year. Minister, are you aware of the potential legal cases and the legal cases that have been filed against Ballynagran? And due to the sheer volume of forward planning and absolute incompetence, emergency legislation is now being rammed through over the heads of the community and their legitimate concern. And this was totally wrong and totally avoidable. Wicklow County Council, in their correspondence, seems to be reliant on the fact that Pool Beg is potentially going to open at some point next year, Minister. But that gives little or no comfort to the locals living within the vicinity of Ballynagran. Minister, these are serious questions, and I urge you to answer them here now for the people of Wicklow, particularly the people who have to live with Ballynagran on a daily basis without the additional 40,000 tonnes going in on top.
Minister, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much. Can I thank Deputy Brady for raising this issue with me? Waste management planning is the responsibility of local authorities under Part 2 of the Waste Management Act of 1996. and precluded under Section 60, subsection 3 of the Waste Management Act of 1996 from the exercise of any power or control in relation to the performance by a local authority, in particular circumstances of a statutory function vested in it under the Act. So, to answer your question, I didn't sign off on anything. The big issue here is a capacity issue nationally in relation to waste. Waste capacity developments, including any potential pinch points and the coming on stream of additional capacity, are kept under constant review by the 3 regional waste management offices in consultation with the industry and other regulatory bodies and my department. On the 11th of November 2016, the 3 Waste Management Plan offices circulated a communication to all local authorities advising of a serious and urgent situation with regard to waste operators' lack of access to outlets for the disposal of residual and related waste in the period up to the 31st December 2016. The shortfall in availability of municipal residual waste disposal and treatment capacity is due to a number of issues, including the recent closure of to all third parties of the largest landfill in the country at Drogheda in County Kildare. The shortfall in capacity at the end of this year can also be attributed to a very significant reduction in the amount of waste exported in 2016 compared to previous years. Over the course of the last week, there have been extensive discussions between the various regulatory authorities in seeking solutions to address the difficulties. Such discussions have included the Environmental Protection Agency, the County and City Management Association, the Regional Waste Management Planning Offices and the local authorities. To prevent or limit potential environmental pollution, both Meath and Wicklow County Council have activated the available landfill capacity in Knockharley and Ballynagran under Section 56 of the Waste Management Act of 1996. Dublin City Council, as the lead authority for the Eastern and Midlands Regional Waste Management Planning Office, have also invoked this legislative provision, which gives a local authority broad powers to take measures in order to prevent or limit environmental pollution. The Environmental Protection Agency, on foot of applications received, granted technical amendments to the licences for both facilities, which provide for an additional intake of waste between now and the end of the year. These actions were necessitated by a serious and urgent scenario which was unfolding. However, this was a temporary measure, as other waste facilities will become available at the start of January and later in 2017. I would like to assure deputies that my primary concern was to avoid a situation whereby waste went uncollected, given the public health and environmental risks associated with this. Throughout this process, I have been kept fully apprised of the discussions and the decision by the relevant regulatory authorities.
Well, Minister, thank you for reading that out. You didn't answer one question that I actually put to you. There are very, very legitimate concerns. I outlined the number of official complaints to the EPA. You've already said that you didn't sign off on this. But, Minister, I asked you a specific question as to whether you were aware of this pending emergency coming at us. And I'm asking you now to have a look at this, because the volume of concerns facing the people of Wicklow are enormous. And, Minister, I'm asking you now personally to intervene in this. We have one family already forced out of the home, unable to go back for over a year. There's pending legal cases because of the difficulties with Ballynagran. There was a fire on site there in 2015. There are huge volumes of concerns. And in the correspondence from the CEO, it states, and I quote, "It is understood that Drogheda Landfill will be in a position to resume accepting waste from the 1st of January. But there's no assurances. There's no guarantees that that landfill will be available come the 1st of January. There's 190,000 tonnes going into that landfill. Minister, there are huge, huge concerns. I ask you a specific question. Minister, were you made aware of this pending emergency coming at us? I ask you a specific question, Minister, will you intervene in this situation? Because I don't think it's good enough that Wicklow is expected to deal with this emergency situation that I think have been highlighted and flagged going back many, many months. And for this, a letter like this, an email like this, to be sent out at 4:30 on a Friday evening or 4:45, whatever time it was circulated, and for no officials, no public representatives to be consulted, least of all the liaison committee that was put in place as part of the planning process, they weren't consulted. This has just been foisted upon an entire community, an entire county, Minister. And I'm asking you now, what have you done to date? Are you abdicating your responsibilities? If not, I want you to personally intervene in this situation now. Wicklow cannot become the dumping ground because of the state's failure to deal with this pending so-called emergency that was coming down the tracks. It's totally, totally unacceptable, and I'm asking you to personally intervene in this situation, Minister. Thank you. Last count.
The big part of the problem that we have in this country is that we have insufficient landfill to meet our current needs. And the incinerator coming on stream next year at Poolbeg is going to help alleviate that problem. We also need to actively encourage people to reduce the amount of waste that they're producing, and to actively encourage people to separate and segregate their waste, so less waste is going into landfill, and that's a big part of the problem that we have at the moment. There have been a series of crises in relation to landfill capacity this year, both in my term as Minister, in the term of Minister Coveney as Minister, and the term of Minister Kelly as Minister. And there have been ongoing issues that we've been working on with the three waste management planning offices to deal with these series of crises as they have arisen. And that's part of the problem here. In relation to your question, will Drogheda open on the 1st of January? Yes, Drogheda will open on the 1st of January and will take waste from the 1st of January. Again, there's absolutely no issue in relation to that. That will happen. And it has licensed capacity of 360,000 tonnes for 2017. So the capacity is there in Drogheda next year. There will be also the landfill site in New Inn in County Galway that had gone into receivership. That will become operational, fully operational next year. We will have Poolbeg coming on stream next year. But we have an ongoing problem in relation to trying to manage a very difficult situation that we have at the moment. Will I intervene? I can't legally intervene. That's and as is stated in my initial contribution, I'm precluded from doing so in relation to the law as it stands. But I've taken note of the points that you've made, and I will follow up on those particular points.